Everyone has a favorite Friends character. Even if you've only seen a couple of episodes of the show, you know if you're a Chandler fan or if you're on Team Rachel. However, the one character that absolutely nobody should be a fan of, under any circumstance, is that no-good scoundrel Ross Geller. While there's no outright main character of the series, a recent study by data scientist Yashu Seth discovered that Ross is actually the star of the show. According to the numbers, Ross narrowly edges out the others in categories like total screen time and total lines spoken. It's a bit shocking that they'd put that large of an emphasis on the clear-cut worst friend of the bunch. Yeah, you heard me. Ross sucks. Oh, that noise? That's the creep clap. You'll be hearing that again soon, every time Ross acts like a massive creep. So why exactly is Ross the worst? Well, for starters, he's truly terrible professionally. While he enjoys acting pretentious because he's technically a doctor, his career actually couldn't be more of a joke. It's also extremely turbulent, as the guy can't even keep a gig anywhere. For starters, he loses his job at the museum due to anger issues and for taking advantage of his coworkers. In fact, his greatest professional accolade is giving a keynote speech at a conference, which he only landed because he literally lied to one of the judges. That's some good work there, you dirtbag. He also goes on to be an utterly miserable professor at the college level. He even goes so far as to try and convince his class that he had the idea for Jurassic Park. That's like full-blown lunatic behavior. As if that's not strange enough, Ross ends up actually dating one of his students. Yeah, like a 21-year-old student. Elizabeth is a nice girl, but by no means should they have been a couple. Not only is it an enormous conflict of interest to date one of your students, but he was also an awful boyfriend to her. He was so controlling and jealous, he wouldn't even let her go on spring break. He was more like an overbearing parent than he was a boyfriend. As any normal person would do, she doesn't accept his demands and goes on spring break anyway. Being the miserable human that he is, he follows her there without telling her. I swear, my hands are going to be sore by the end of this video. This isn't just confined to his relationship with his student Elizabeth either. Ross is consistently a terrible boyfriend to everyone he dates throughout the series. He's constantly riddled with insecurities and acting in awful ways. When Rachel finally gets a job that she's happy with and enjoys, Ross tries asserting his dominance against her new boss, Mark, by sending absurd gifts to her office. Rachel even tries to be understanding about it and attempts to explain to him that her work is important to her and he has nothing to worry about, and he just does not hear her. He's so jealous and controlling and manipulative that he can't comprehend his girlfriend having a career of her own. He even goes so far as to call it, quote, just a job. But heaven forbid anyone ever question his work with dinosaur bones or whatever. In fact, when the tables are flipped, and it's Ross's career we're talking about, there's no messing around. In episode 2 of season 3, Ross and Rachel are invited to a benefit gala at the museum he works for. She takes a little longer than usual to get ready, only because she wants to look good for his big night, and he ends up literally berating her until she gives up. He was a massive jerk about the entire thing. By the end of the series, Ross straight up makes Rachel choose between him and her dream job in Paris. What kind of individual would want the person that they love and care about to give up on their dreams? And don't even get me started on the whole "we were on a break" thing.
We were on a break!
You know what else is a pretty big jerk move? Saying the wrong name at the altar. Rather than say Emily, the name of the girl he was standing directly in front of, about to marry, he says Rachel's name. Very unchill move. So is using Rachel to cheat on both Bonnie and Julie at different points in time. Aside from his romantic relationships, the guy is also a horrible parent. He has a son named Ben, which he had with his first wife, Carol. During episode 4 of season 3, Ross discovers that his son enjoys playing with Barbie dolls. It's a toy for children, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with a boy playing with a Barbie doll, but Ross just can't accept it. He lets his bigoted views affect his parenting and does everything in his power to convince his son to stop enjoying himself. Later on in the series, Ross has a second child. This time, it's a girl named Emma, which he has with Rachel. What's peculiar is that after Emma is born, we literally never hear from or see Ben ever again. Ross pretty much completely forgets that he already has a kid once the newer one arrives. And he's no better the second time around either. When Ross and Rachel split up again, Rachel becomes the primary caretaker of Emma. At one point, Ross spots Rachel and her new boyfriend Gavin kissing, and he gets so worked up into a rage over the fact that she's off having fun while he's stuck at home, taking care of his own baby. Like, dude, seriously? You're upset that your ex is moving on and happy again and that you're stuck at home with your own child? How bitter and vindictive can you possibly be? It's a telling sign that by the end of the series, when Rachel decides to leave for Paris, she leaves Emma with her mother for the week that she was gone, rather than with Ross. Rachel would rather her mother look after their baby than the actual father. Emma eventually joins her in Paris and they live happily ever after. Ross, on the other hand, never even entertains the idea of moving with them. That wasn't even an option in his mind. His crappy life in New York was clearly far more important than his, silly daughter and probable soulmate. So he's a terrible boyfriend, he's a terrible father, and he's also just a terrible person. Don't believe me? Well, for starters, he's horribly sexist on multiple occasions. He wasn't okay with a male nanny for his daughter. On top of that, he just assumed that the nanny was gay because he was a male. That's some grade A bigotry right there. He also dumps Bonnie simply because she shaved her head, meaning that he was only with her for her looks and clearly didn't actually care about her at all. He's also horrible with his family. When Monica's father gives her his Porsche as like a reconciliation attempt for always favoring Ross, Ross gets so upset about it. The guy who always got everything and always experienced preferential treatment gets so bitter the one time his sister is put first. He's also constantly fat-shaming his younger sister in such cruel and demeaning ways. He also tries to kiss his cousin that one time, which I don't even want to start unpacking that. Let's just... On top of all that, when he finds out that Rachel is pregnant with their child, he tells her that they're getting married. He doesn't even ask, he just tells her. This isn't 1910, buddy. He also keeps track of how many times he and Rachel slept together. 298 times, according to his records. Who the heck does that? That's like actual psychopath behavior. His mistreatment of Rachel doesn't end there. He goes so far as to make a pros and cons list about her, including calling her spoiled and ditzy. When she finds out and gets upset, he somehow gets mad at her, as if that makes any sense. That's some classic mentally abusive behavior right there. The fact that they somehow ended up together after all of that is just mind-boggling. When things shockingly don't work out with Rachel, he moves on and goes and dates her sister. That's just like so uncool. And Rachel was not okay with it at all, but Ross does it anyways. I don't understand how Rachel didn't hate this guy's guts. Even when they weren't dating and just remained friends, he was always the worst to her. He hides the phone message that Rachel gets from a guy at the bar for no good reason other than he's just a jealous jerk. He also refuses to get their accidental drunken marriage annulled strictly because of his own image. He doesn't want to be the guy who's been divorced 3 times, so he tries convincing Rachel to stay married, even though it was clearly a mistake on both of their parts. That's being a bad ex and a bad friend. Speaking of which, since this is a show about a group of friends, let's talk about how bad of an actual friend Ross was. We already know how horrible he treated Rachel and his sister Monica, but he's equally awful to the rest of the gang as well. He couldn't let Phoebe just believe that her mom was reincarnated as a cat. Sometimes people just need to cope in odd ways, and Phoebe was trying to get over the loss of her mother by creating a false situation in her own head. Ross, being the top-notch jerk that he is, just couldn't let her believe something that he knew wasn't true. His oldest friend of the bunch is Chandler. The duo go way back to their high school days, when Ross was already throwing his buddy under the bus and telling his parents that he was the one smoking pot instead of himself. That's a real good best friend move. He's no better with Joey either. In fact, Ross hooks up with Charlie just minutes after she breaks up with Joey. Do you have any idea how many codes that breaks? Despite all of this, Chandler and Joey still let Ross move in with them for a brief time when he has nowhere else to go. Despite their generous gesture, he's, not surprisingly, the worst roommate of all time. He's constantly telling them to quiet down, and he even goes so far as to ask them both to chip in for air filters for his air purifier. That guy has zero self-awareness. The fact that the rest of the friends still hang out with him makes no sense to me whatsoever. Finally, in my opinion, there's one absolute worst thing that Ross Geller does throughout the Friends series. He owns a pet monkey. In New York City, in an apartment. What kind of inhumane fool would do such a thing? That's a wild animal. Definitely not suited for city apartment living. To get a pet like that is just selfish. All in all, it makes total sense why this guy has 3 ex-wives and 2 kids that he never sees. He flat out sucks. Do you agree? Or are you more of a Ross fan? Sound off in the comments down below. I'd love to see someone try and defend this walking garbage pail. You never know, we may end up selecting one of your comments for a future video, so be on the lookout. Before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Behind the Screen to stay up to date on all of our latest releases. Until next time, bye!